Perfect. All right, Janadi, will you start by reading? Read the paragraph or two, please. Okay, and I'll tell you to stop.
Teacher, the introduction.
Yeah, read it from the beginning then.
During the 45 years of his ministry, the Buddha never thought of appointing a successor to take charge of the order. After his passing away, his wish was that the Dhamma be kept as a teacher. In Vakkali Sutta, the Buddha said to Vakkali, "What is there in looking at the decomposing body of mine? It is enough to see the Dhamma. He who has seen the Dhamma sees me. Yo Dhamma passati so mam passati." At the demise of Nigantana Putta, there was a dissension among his followers, which led to the breaking away of his order. Venerable Chunda, who heard this news, informed Venerable Ananda. Both of them together went and expressed their grave concern, as they feared a similar state of affairs would occur in the Buddhist order also. The Buddha said, "Therefore, Chunda, you all should assemble and decide together. The profound truth, possessed of meaning and utterly perfect, so well realized by me. You should not debate over it. It will be for the benefit of mankind, for the welfare of gods and humans, and for the long endurance of the order." The necessity was seen because of the actions of Devadatta Thera, who wanted to create dissension among the Sangha on a number of doctrinal matters.
Okay, for that. Thank you. That's very good. So, if we look at, it's an interesting thing actually. Somebody recently also mentioned this. So, almost every other religion has some leader who is appointed as the leader passes away, another person is appointed, right? So if you take, you all know the Pope in Christianity or the Catholic religion, then I think it's the Roman Catholic religion, right? Similarly, there's a Dalai Lama in the Mahayana sect. That is later on when Buddhism got divided into sects. So originally, the Buddha had no intention of naming a leader to take over him as a successor, and that was Devadatta Thero's plan. He was hoping that the Buddha will name a successor, and he was hoping that the Buddha will name him. So the Buddha had no plan to name a successor, and even if he did name a successor, he would never have named Devadatta Thero. There were far greater arahants who could have done the job. So why did so this whole discussion around there should be a successor, there should be a leader after the Buddha, it all came to being for a couple of reasons, right? So one reason was that Devadatta was trying to break up the Sasana. He was trying to take the leadership by force, right? So those things was one reason why the monks felt that maybe instead of somebody forcefully taking on the leadership, maybe it should be appointed because the Buddha was a human being, and it was clear that after a certain age, the Buddha's human body will be no more, right? So that is why these discussions started coming. So another reason was Nigandanatha Buddha, who was known as Mahavihara, he established the Jaina religion, and the Jaina religion is quite a successful religion even today in India. So when he passed away, a short time after he passed away, his followers got into arguments about what did the leader say and what the leader didn't say, right? It's very easy not to get into arguments like that. Yeah. One reason is these things are not documented, right? And even if things are documented, how one person understands it will be slightly different how another person understands it. So there will always be misunderstandings about even about something that was taught and explained really well, right? It's quite human. Has that happened to you all at school? Yeah, that something is explained by the teacher, but various children understood it in different ways. Has that happened to? Who has it happened to? You don't need to tell me what it is, but if you can empathize with what I'm saying, just raise your hand. And where did all the videos go? What happened to the videos? Keep the videos on, Putha. So, Manasi, have you seen that happen at school or at class or with friends, where somebody says something and different people understand it in different ways? Can you empathize with that? What do you think? Inura, are you saying something? You are on mute. It's not getting unmuted. Tedoli, Tedas, Lanka, can you keep your videos on, please? Inura, what seems to be the problem? So who knows what I'm talking about? Who has experienced it? Anybody? You know, if I was at the Dhamma school, I'll be asking you all these questions, right? Is it possible that when somebody says something, others understand it in different ways? Manuka, what do you think? Do you agree or not? What, Putha? You don't agree? Or you agree? Inura, you can't unmute. Gautam, what do you think?
I think can happen, teacher.
It can happen, no, Putha? Yeah. It happens all the time, Putha. Happens all the time. Okay. So that is why humans have problems, because people misunderstand. And misunderstanding happens very naturally, right? Because you are thinking of something, you're thinking of some other context, you're thinking of some personal experience or personal reference, and the message you understand from that context, right? I think of homework. How many times when teacher gives homework, do you all call each other and say, "Hey, me ada mokada homework වලට දුන්නේ ඇත්තටම?" Yeah, because either you are half listening or something or the other, right? Or you understood it wrong, or when you try to do it, you realize that I really didn't get it. මොකක්ද දන්නේ ඇත්තටම කිව්වේ. Okay, so it happens all the time. All right. So what they saw was when the leader Nigantanatha Putta passed away, soon his followers started quarreling with each other, and they split into two because they couldn't agree on what they thought Nigantanatha Putta was trying to say and do, right? And that is true with anything now. Even if you take Christianity, there is Catholics, Roman Catholics, there's Christians, there is born again Christians, there is Anglicans, right? It's all coming from one source. Similarly, if you take Buddhism, there's Mahayana, there's Hinayana, there's various sects now, right? There's the Tibetan Buddhism, which is what most of the world know because of the Dalai Lama, right? And the Theravada Buddhism, which is what is mostly found in Sri Lanka. You find it in Thailand and Burma, few countries like that. Can I request you all to keep the videos on, Pata? Everybody? Are your videos automatically going off or are you all switching it off? Huh? So, Lanka and Manuka. Yes. So, so therefore, as a result, soon after Nigandhanatha Putta passed away, his following split into two, right? So having seen that, Venerable Chunda was very concerned and he was talking to Venerable Ananda about it. And then they both went and said, you know, this happened to Niganthanatha Buddha and his order, so maybe it will happen to us also. So what should we do? And then of course the Buddha said, you know, whenever you are in doubt, look into the Dhamma and see what is it that I have preached. The Dhamma should be your guide, right? Okay, that's okay, you know, right? That's all right. So if you have a network issue, that's okay. All right. So I do this all the time, right? Whenever I have a problem in life, I always think, if I could ask the Buddha about this problem, what would he advise me, right? So I always think WWTBD, what would the Buddha do? Okay, that's like a mantra for me. What would the Buddha do? And because for us, the Buddha is the role model, and the way he demonstrated leadership, the way he taught, and the kind of things he did, it was all with a lot of metta and karuna, and he was a very wise person, and he was the reason for wars to stop or get prevented, right? He was never a reason for a war to start. He was always a reason for a war to stop or end or get prevented, right? So he is a great role model for all of us. So whenever I have any doubts, I always think about what would the Buddha advise me if the Buddha is living now, and if I can go and meet him and if I can ask him. Yeah, Lanka, that's fine. Lanka is asking me something. Yeah, go for it, Lanka. So, yeah. So the Buddha rightfully said, I am not going to appoint a leader. Everything that I have taught you, that is going to be the leader. So now these things give us a very, very important insight about why the Buddhist councils came into play, because, you know, in 45 years when Buddha was teaching, he didn't teach a syllabus, right? He taught people based on what people wanted to know. So it wasn't that now we teach Buddhism, we have a syllabus because we kind of have an okay, so you guys are saying you have a connection problem and you want to keep the camera off. So look, one day when you teach, you will understand, right? When you are teaching to a blank screen, yeah, it's not like teaching children, right? It's like, for all I know, I might be talking to your TV or your fridge. You may have gone, and it might be your table that is there or your chair, right? So when I see you guys and when I can see you smile or whatever, then I know that we are interacting, right? What I'm saying, whether it's making sense, I can see from your eyes, from your expressions, right? So if one by one you all turn the screens off, I don't have a clue as to who is listening. Maybe it's a frog at home, and maybe you have gone for a walk, maybe you got bored. Okay. So that is why I asked you to keep the videos on. So if you have some network issue or connection issue, okay, I understand, but because it is raining, I'm sure everybody has network and connection issues, okay? So do try to keep your video on as much as possible, but by keeping the video on, if you are, if the link is dropping, that means definitely you don't have enough bandwidth. Then for sure you can switch it off, okay? But try to understand why I'm saying keep the video on, just to know that you are there. All right. Okay, so what else? There was this monk called Vakkali who thought that the Buddha was very good looking, right? He's not the only one who thought Buddha was very good looking. A lot of people thought Buddha was very good looking, and no wonder, because the Buddha is from North India. Have you seen North Indians? Like most of them are film stars, right? They are all quite good looking. So it's no wonder that people thought the Buddha was good looking. So this Vakkali Thero, he was fascinated by the Buddha, and he would love to just come and sit and look at the Buddha all the time. So the Buddha would tell him, Vakkali, what is there to look at in this body of mine? This is a decomposing body, right? If you really want to see me, you should see the Dhamma, because anyone who sees the Dhamma sees me. Anyone who sees me will see the Dhamma, right? So your Dhamma Pasata, your Somam Pasata, that is what he meant by that, right? Because for him, this physical body that we occupy is just a vessel, right? So you need to keep it clean, you need to protect it, you need to keep it well, right? You need to feed it well and protect it and make sure there's adequate sleep and all of that. But beyond that, to think of it like, oh my God, wow, this is so beautiful. That was definitely not how the Buddha saw the body, right? So therefore, when Vakkali Thera is like, oh my God, you're so so good looking, right? I can look at you the whole day. He's like, what? Are you nuts? Right? What is there to look? There's nothing to look in this. But if you really want to know, if you really want to see me, try and understand the Dhamma. Okay. So that is the intro that Janadi read to us. So good job, Janadi. And now let's go into more detail, right? Okay, so who would like to read next? Any volunteers? Inura, would you like to read?
Yes.
Okay, go for it. Inura.
The first Buddhist council. Historical background. When Venerable Kassapa was coming to pay respect to the Buddha, he heard of his passing away from an ascetic returning from Kushinara. The monks who were not free from passions began to lament on hearing the news, while those who were free from passions suppressed their sorrows and began to reflect on their impermanence of all component things. A monk, Subhadra by name, began to console the weeping bhikkhus, saying, "Do not weep, do not lament. We are free from the great sage. We are at liberty to go our own way." Hearing these improper words of Subhadra, Venerable Mahakassapa, foreseeing the danger of the future further of the Sangha, decided to purify the order by holding a convocation of Dhamma, Vinaya, at the earliest possible date.
Okay, go on.
That's it.
That's it. All right. So so you all know how the parinibbana of the Buddha took place, right? Venerable Mahakashyapa, he looked like the Buddha, and once, or not just once, many times he was mistaken to be the Buddha, and once when they were going for alms, Pindusigawadinakota, somebody thought that Venerable Kashyapa was the Buddha and was trying to, sorry, the Buddha was going in the front, of course, and somebody was trying to offer him something, and then happened to see Venerable Kashyapa coming from behind, and thought that that is the Buddha, and බුදුහාමුදුරන්ට ඒක බෙදන්න ගියප එක බෙදන්න නැතුව ගිහිල්ලා මහා කාශ්‍යප රහතන් වහන්සේට බෙදන්න ගත්තා, thinking it's the Buddha කියලා. So since that happened, මහා කාශ්‍යප රහතන් වහන්සේ thought this is not good, this is not good. If people are mistaking me to this level, I should never be in the same city or the same place as the Buddha. In fact, until as long as the Buddha is alive, I shouldn't be anywhere in these cities or communities, because people will always misunderstand me. And Venerable Kashyapa was such a humble person, so he thought the Buddha was so great and too good to be mistaken for me. So what he did was he went to the jungle and he stayed. He had a monastic life, a forest monastic life, until the Buddha was passing away. So when Buddha's passing away was nearing, he knew that it's nearing, so he started coming to see the Buddha before he passed away with 500 other monks. So on the way, they happened to be resting when somebody was passing by, an ascetic, I think, and this Ratan Vansi happened to ask, "Hey friend, what news?" And this ascetic said, "The Samma Sambuddha, the great being, the great person, has passed away." So all the enlightened beings, including Mahakassapa, Ratan Vahanse, they whenever they receive such a bad news, they take it away. An enlightened person takes, and they reflect on everything is impermanent, everything is unsatisfactory, and there's really no one controlling anything. So the whole Anitya Dukkha Anatta. The lay people, not the lay people, the monks who are not enlightened yet, so they were, of course, unhappy to hear that the Buddha had passed away, and they were hoping to see the Buddha one last time. So they were crying and lamenting. And then there happened to be a monk who was quite elderly, because he had joined the monastic order quite late in life, right? So you know that seniority in the monkhood is not as per the age, but as per when you got fully ordained, right? So somebody might be 80 years old, but has just joined the Sasani, and somebody might be, let's say, 20 years old and has been fully ordained for X number of years. If that is the case, the new person must pay respect for the person who is more senior in being fully ordained, right? So this Subhadra, the monk Subhadra, was a person who was quite elderly, let's say about 60 or 70, because he joined the Satsana quite late in his life. So he didn't really fancy this whole thing about him not being a senior, and quite young junior people to him in age being his senior as a monk. So he was not happy with that. Then he was not happy with many of the Vinaya rules, right? All these Vinaya rules came because the Buddha was preaching the Dhamma for 45 years. In those 45 years, the first 20 years, the people who joined the Sasana was people who were really interested in enlightenment, people who were looking for a way out of this samsara. So they were very genuine people, their intentions were good, and they were serious in their practice, they were serious in their meditation, and they were serious in their trying to understand and follow the eightfold path, and So imagine people like that. You don't need rules to control people like that, because they're anyway very disciplined. They are having high morals, right? What we call sila. So when people are with high morals or sila, it's nothing much you don't need rules, right? But in the second 25 years of the Buddha's Samma Sambuddha life, right? Then people started joining for the wrong reasons. Now, by the second 25 years, to be a Buddhist monk was a good thing. Why? Because kings were supporting the Sasana, Siddhus were supporting, rich merchants were supporting, and there was a lot of support coming in, monasteries were being built, dana were being given. So suddenly young men, the Bhikkhuni Sasana hadn't started yet. So young men were like, hey, this is a really cool way to live now. You don't have to work hard, you don't have to do manual labor, you just become, let go of your lay life, become a monk, and then suddenly you can live a very comfortable life. So there were people who joined for that reason, because this is a really cool life. I don't have to work, I just get to eat, and I get a comfortable place to sleep in. That was one reason. Second reason was Buddhism was becoming very popular, because the kind of things the Buddha was telling was exactly the kind of thing that the world was interested to listen to, the people were interested in. So many, many smaller religious cults started losing their followers. Those followers were going and listening to the Buddha, and some were converting, and so on. So they were losing followers, they were losing dana. It became very, what do you say? Sorry, somebody put a message on. What is this message? I can see you, but I can't hear you because it's raining. Okay, that's fine. If there's heavy rain, you can drop out, Putta. I'm anyway recording this session. I'll post the recording. Okay, that's fine. So, so the second reason was that the smaller religious cults, the people who are already monks in the smaller religious cults, they realized that no more followers, no more dana, then what shall we do? So they had the option of going back to become layman, and that means you have to do hard work. Or should we do the easier way of, why don't we just join the sasana, and then we get to live in temples, comfortable temples, we get the dana, and then there are people anyway coming in, and we can teach them whatever our religious views, right? So people were pretending to be monks, and teaching their whatever they wanted to teach, because of all of these things, right? Let me just answer this. All right, so for these reasons, the Buddha then realized this is not right. Oh, okay, there was another reason, that the Vinaya or the discipline started coming in the second 25 years. So kings would give, like if there were robbers and criminals and various other guys, they realized that if they come to a temple and become a monk, then the king will not prosecute them, right? The king will not take action against them. So criminals started coming and joining the sasana and becoming monks as a way of getting protection, right? Now, of course, there were instances where that worked very well, and the intentions were very pure. Like if you take Angulimala Rahatan Wahanse, right? He was a serial killer, having killed so many people, but once he understood and got enlightened, that's it, right? So the king and army was coming to get him, and they were looking for a murderous person, and they couldn't believe it when the Buddha showed the Rahatan Wahanse. They couldn't believe that this is the person. So ඔක්කොම ළම ඒ රහතන් වහන්සේට වැඳලා ගියා පහු, right? So those kind of amazing things happen, but in the midst of those, some criminals also were looking for opportunities to join the sasana and avoid getting arrested, and those days the punishments were very, very severe, right? So for these reasons, the Buddha realized that people are now joining the sasana for wrong intentions also. People are still joining for the right intentions, but now there are equal numbers joining for the wrong intentions. So therefore, he started bringing out rules, which was the Vinaya Pitaka, right? So then Vinaya Pitaka was talking about so many rules, just to make sure that people adhere to a simple lifestyle, and they are not a problem or trouble to the other fellow monks in monasteries or for the laymen and so on. So this Subhadra, who joined later to the Sasana and was an elderly person. So he was not happy for many reasons. One is he was not happy that even though he's an elderly person, he's not getting that due space, because in the Sasana, elderly means nothing. It's all about when were you fully ordained, and that is what leads to seniority, right? Second thing is he was getting very tired with all these rules. What is this rules, too many rules, right? Those rules were there for a reason. If you join the Sasana with the right intentions, those rules will not bother you. But if you join the Sasana for the wrong reasons, then of course those rules will be a hindrance, right? If you join the Sasana for the right reasons, to be a monk and get enlightened, then those rules will help you, it will enable you in that journey. But if not, if you just joined it for the fun, the free food, the free lodging, and just to have chill out, then of course these rules would be a burden. So that is what Subhadra was facing. So therefore, a person like that, when he heard that the Buddha had passed away, he couldn't believe that there were the unenlightened monks crying, and he was like, "Hey guys, chill out. Now that the boss is not there, then the rules are not there, and we can have a really good time." Okay. So when Mahakashyapa Rahatan Vahanse heard this, he was shocked. He was thinking the Buddha has just passed away, and already people are trying to take advantage of it. This is not a good sign, right? So after the funeral activities were all over, he had some serious discussions with the enlightened, the Rahatan Vahanses, and with, of course, with Ananda Thero. So Ananda Thero at the time was not enlightened, but everybody treated Ananda with a lot of respect and all, because he had an amazing memory. So if he heard something once, a sermon, he remembered everything. Secondly, he was associating the Buddha so closely, right? He knew most of the Dhamma, and he was a most important person for the Sasana. So they discussed with him, and they all agreed that we really need to have a Sangha, which is to recite everything that the Buddha said, confirm that this is what the Buddha said, and take it, put it in some order, right? In the 45 years that the Buddha preached, he didn't plan to preach a syllabus like we are teaching you now, but rather he told the important things, and then whatever people come and ask him based on that, like take the Mangala Sutra, right? The Devatawa comes and asks, what Mangala Karma kena monada, right? What can we consider as auspicious or noble things? And then the Buddha explained to them, right? So similarly, most of the things were said and explained when people came and asked questions and so on. So it was far from being a syllabus, but it was more practical and relevant. But once in the Sangha, now they had an opportunity, now that everything was put together, they had an opportunity to put it into some nice buckets, right? So they classified all the teaching under long discourses, short discourses, and so on. And you will see all of that, right? Okay, so this whole Subhadda's words, unwise words, was the trigger for Mahakashyapa Rahatan Vahanse to realize that something serious needs to be done. Otherwise, within a few months or a year or so, this sasana will just get destroyed. Okay. All right. So who would like to read next? Manasi, would you like to?
Okay.
Okay.
Time, place, patronage, and duration. The first Buddhist council was held 3 months after the passing away Parinibbana of the Buddha during the reign of King Ajatasattu under his patronage. By this time, he was a firm believer of the Buddha and a devout patron of the Buddha. The venue was
Sattapani cave in the city of Rajagaha. 500 destitute arahants participated to recite the Dhamma Vinaya. Venerable Ananda was only a stream winner, attained arahantship on the earth prior to the convocation, as he had to be there, being the treasurer of the Dhamma Bandhagarika. It took 7
Dhamma
months to complete
Bandhagarika.
the Bandhagarika. It took 7 months to complete the recital.
Okay, thank you for that. So yes, in summary, so the Buddhist council was held 3 months after the passing away of the Buddha, and the trigger for it, or the reason to hold the council, was what Subhadra, the monk Subhadra, said on hearing the news that the Buddha had passed away. Some monks were lamenting when a monk called Subhadra said, "Do not weep, do not lament. We are free of the great sage to do as we wish." Right. The lead monk, the monk who took the leadership to organize it and conduct it, was Venerable Mahakashyapa Thero. The place where the council was held was the Sattapani cave in the city of Rajagaha, and they wanted 500 arahants. There were 499, and the last person was Ananda Thero. So the king who supported was King Ajasatta. By then, he had realized his mistake. He had a son and he was father himself, so he realized that what he did for his father was wrong, and he was very, very upset. And he came to the Buddha, and the Buddha helped him to find some kind of peace. And he was very, very supportive to Buddhism. So it took a total of 7 months, because I remember this is everything that the Buddha preached for 45 years, right? So it's not an easy task. Reciting everything that was preached is by no means an easy task. So if you think of these sutras, they all start by saying Evam Me Sutam, right? It happened because of this Sanghayana. So at the Sanghayana, so what happens is, Putas, you imagine that there is this big hall, and in this big hall, imagine that all the enlightened people, all these Rahatan Vahansas, are sitting in a circular format, and one person will stand up, so let's say Ananda Thero, and he will say, "So friends, I have heard thus the great sage say like this." Let's take Mangala Sutra, for example. So he'll say, so friends, respectable bhikkhus, I heard once that the great sage, Samma Sambuddha, he responded to a Devatava who one day in the night, he came to see the Samma Sambuddha, and he was a glowing being, and as he came in, even the temple got lit up. It was like daylight. And then he came and worshipped the Buddha, and he was standing with respect, and he told the Buddha that all beings, the deities in the heavens and people on earth, they're all wondering what can be considered as noble and as auspicious, Mangala Karuna, and will you tell us? And then the Buddha mentioned these as the Mangala Karuna. That is how Ananda Thero was explaining it to them, right? So that is why, and then whatever he said, the monks who were present that day, the enlightened beings, they said, let us memorize this. Okay, so remember, this was before the things were being written down. Things were memorized and passed from teacher to student, generation after generation. It was passed over, right? So when Ananda started by saying Evam Me Sutang Ekam Samayam Bhagava Savastyam Viharati Jetavane, and so on, first thing was for others to accept that this is correct. Second was to then memorize it, All right. And that is what they did. And up to now, now of course, thankfully it is written, it is in YouTube, it is here, it is there, it is everywhere, right? But back then it was just memorized and passed. So what was the outcome of the first Buddhist council? So one is the entire Dhamma and Vinaya, as expounded by the Buddha, was systematically compiled and grouped into 3 Pitakas. Each Pitaka was divided into books, which they called Nikayas, and entrusted to sections of the Sangha known as the Banakas. For the oops, happened. Everybody okay? All right. And this was done for the preservation of the book allocated to each of them. Arrangements were made for the continuity of the preservation of these Nikayas from generation to generation. So for example, Venerable Ananda and his pupils were in charge of the Diga Nikaya. So Diga Nikaya, Majjhima Nikaya. So Diga Nikaya means long sermons, right? So sometimes the Buddha would go into long sermons to explain things in detail. And those things were given to Venerable Ananda and his pupils to carry, were from person to person by memorizing. So Majjhima Nikaya is middle length sermons and so on. Okay, so that is how the first Sanghayana took place. I think you didn't finish reading it, ne? Manasi, that was you who read it, right, Pata?
Yes.
Yeah, ne? Okay, so Manuka, would you like to read from where Manasi stopped?
Okay. The entire Dhamma Vinaya, as expounded by the Buddha, was systematically combined together and grouped into the 3 Pitaka. Each Pitaka was divided into the books and instructed to the sections of the Sangha known as Banakas for the prevention of the book allotted to the each of them. Arrangements were made for the quantity of prevention from generation to generation.
Yeah, so arrangements were made for the continuity, okay, of preservation of them from generation to generation. Yeah, all right, so that's fine. So that was the first Dhamma Sanghayana, and it was first Buddhist council. It was held just 3 months after the passing away of the Buddha. Okay, so let us go through the second one as well. Who okay, not to worry, don't worry. Okay, so all right, Metuki, would you like to read?
Okay.
Okay, please read.
The second Buddhist Council. Historical background and the time and the cause. 100 years after the first council, some Vijayan Bhikkhu from Vesali explained 10 things to be permissible practice for this every and comfortable living. Singalona Kappa. Carrying salt in a horn, respectful to season the food. Devangula Kappa. Partaking the middle meal till the sun's shadow had not passed the meridian by more than 2 fingers breadth. Gamantara Kappa. Going to the village and having another meal. Avasa Kappa. Observing the Upasatha ceremony independently to their own temple within the same parish area. Anumati Kappa, performing disciplinary acts and deciding with the intention of getting covered approval from the rest of the bhikkhus. Achinna Kappa, following the traditions coming down from teaching and perspective indiscriminately without judging whether they are right or wrong. Amanta Kappa, drinking milk which had begun to turn but not become, but not become curd. Jalogi Kappa, drinking unfermented lamb toddy, a kind of liquor. Adasaka Nisidana Kappa, using a fitness drug not of the perceivable length. Jatarupa Rajatpatipagana Kappa, accepting gold and silver.
Okay, thank you for that. So, if we go back to why are these Buddhist councils so important, right? When the Buddha said, after my passing away, Dhamma will be the teacher and Dhamma will be the leader, he also advised that rather than debate about the Dhamma, you all should get together, recite the Dhamma, and follow the Dhamma. Okay, so this whole advice to assemble together, recite together, and follow it is the whole reason why they are having a Buddhist council, right? So 3 months after passing away of the Buddha, the first Buddhist council was when they all assembled, recited all the various sutras that the Buddha had taught in the 45 years, and they all confirmed that yes, this is true, we have heard this like this, and they agreed to memorize it and pass it on from generation to generation, right? And so 100 years passed after the first Buddhist council. Yeah. So around that time, there were some monks who were called as the Vajji bhikkhus, right? So they had formed 10 rules, which was very different to the Vinaya Pitaka. So now the whole idea of becoming a monk is to let go of the pleasure-seeking nature of a human being, right? So human beings like pleasures. We like to use our eyes to see things, see nice things. We like to use our ears to hear nice things like music. We like to taste good food, right? We like nice perfumes. We like comfortable beds and AC and various other things, yeah? So it is called a pleasure-seeking existence, right? So normal humans, Pratagyanas, are always looking for pleasures. But an enlightened being is a person who has understood that that is, of course, of no value, and it's only going to cause a lot of grief and unhappiness and fear, and as a result, anger and ill will. So they renounce everything. They say that, we don't want anything, any of these things. We just want peace of mind. And they go away, right? And meditate or join a monastery and help other people to learn the Dhamma and so on. So they learn the Dhamma themselves first. So and earlier I told you that people were joining the Sasana for the wrong reasons, right? Now, these Vajji people were obviously people who had joined the Sasana for wrong reasons. So they found the rules, the Vinaya rules, too strict. So they said, let us relax these rules a bit. Let us become flexible a bit. And they found that when they go on Pindapata, so ගමේ මිනිස්සු එක එක කෑම ඒගොල්ලන් හදන විදිහට ඒගොල්ලෝ කන විදිහට කෑම තමයි දෙන්නේ පුතා, right? And other than the kings and the situs, rest of the population were poor. So these Vajji bhikkhus found that most often the food is not tasty. So they got into the habit of carrying a bit of salt with them, right? So if the food is not tasty, they just sprinkle a bit of salt. Right? So if you are eating some cutlets with sauce, you miss the taste of the cutlet. You are actually enjoying the sauce, right? So similarly, if the food was not tasty, so these guys will put a bit of salt on it, which is not correct as per the Vinaya Pitaka. So how do you carry salt? අපිට නම් තියෙනවනේ පුතා පොඩි plastic containers තියෙනවා, chudi shopping bags තියෙනවා. So in those days people didn't have those. So one way people carried salt was they would take හිතන්නකො මේ හරක් අඟක් කියලා, right? You know, the bulls have horns. So you take a horn after the bull is dead, of course, and you clean the inside of the horn, and you can dry it in the sun well and clean it. And once the whole bad smell and all is gone, the horn, if you can put a nice lid into it, is a good container to carry salt. So people used to carry salt in horns, right? So the Vajjian said, it is okay to carry horn with salt. And once you go up in the path and begging for food and you find the food, you can sprinkle some salt, okay? So Evage, they started relaxing rules. So there were 10 rules that they took and they relaxed it, and it was definitely against the Vinaya. Another thing was at that time, there were strict rules that monks cannot come into contact with money, right? Gold coins or money, because when you start taking money, you become greedy, right? And that's normal if you're not enlightened. So, but the Vajjian said, it's okay to take money from laymen. So laymen can give us food for dana, they can give us clothing for dana, they can give us money for dana as well, right? But at the time, the Buddha, in the Vinaya, it was clearly mentioned that monks cannot handle money, right? So nowadays, now it is 2,600 years later, you find that monks are employed, they get a salary. So now things have changed a lot, and that's normal, right? When any religion stays in the world for so long, things change, right? So but this was back then, and as for the Vinaya Pitaka, this was wrong. Yeah. So there were many things like this. Okay. All right. Who will like to read next? Kenuli, would you like to read? Kenuli. Okay. Kenuli is missing. Gautam, would you like to read for that?
One second, miss.
Yeah. Can the others, if possible, put the videos on? I know you have various connection issues, but if possible, please keep the videos on. Okay.
Teacher, I should start from that elder Yasana.
Yes, Pata, where who was reading it before? Where Metuki stopped. Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, teacher, I didn't hear it.
Where Metuki left over, Pata?
Okay, teacher. Elder Yasa, who was 160 years old, one of the earliest converts of the Buddha, was going for alms in Vesali, and he saw the monks of the area collecting contributions from the laymen into a frozen bowl filled with water. He told the laymen that the sons of the Buddha were not allowed to accept gold and silver. The laymen did not listen to him, but the monks in turn offered Venerable as a share, which he refused. Then they wanted to inflict the punishment of suspension, Patisaraniyakamma, on him. Venerable Vyasa rose to the sky and flew to Kosambi. He assembled the bhikkhus there and forbade the acceptance of money. The bhikkhus of Avanti power and the south, who assembled on Ahoganga Hill, decided to invite Venerable Revata too, who was with the Vajjans, to discuss the implication connected with the Vinaya rules.
Okay. So what happened now? There was this Thera Yasa. Now he was 160 years old, right? Isn't that like wow? Isn't it? Have you met really old people?
No.
No? So who is the oldest person you have met, Manuka? Is it me? How old is the oldest person you have met? Janad, what about you? You think of the old people you have met, how old was the oldest person? Hmm?
like 89.
89. Okay, that's good. That's quite old. Yeah. Inura, who is the oldest person you have? 90. Okay. Manasi?
70.
70. All right. I'll be 70 soon. I'm 50 now. Okay, Kalana, who is the oldest person you have met?
85.
85. All right. Manuka?
70.
70 something. All right. Tenuli, what about you?
90.
90. Okay, cool. Gautam?
Teacher, I don't have idea. Maybe about 80.
80. Okay. Metuki?
98.
98. Well done. Okay. Kenuli? Kenuli was not able to speak, neither. Kenuli, there you are. Okay. Kenuli, what about you?
94.
94. Very good. Very good. Okay. Siddhas, what about you, darling?
72.
78. Okay. All right. So Metuki had met a 98-year-old. So for me also, the oldest person I had met in my life was 98. That was my grandmother from my mother's side. But recently I met another Achi Amma, right, who was a distant relation to us, and she was 102. Okay. So, and she was quite weak, and she was saying that she can't remember stuff and she needed help to walk, right? So, why I asked you all that was, and very few of you had met a person in their 90s and late 90s at that. So this elder Yasser was 160 years old, okay? And he was, looks like he was walking about on his own, right? It doesn't say that somebody was helping him to walk. So that's really cool, isn't it? 160 years old and walking about and active. And so when he happened to be in this Vaisali city, he saw some monks going around collecting money, right? So those days, the currency was gold coins and silver coins. And in the Vinaya Pitaka, it clearly says that monks can't collect money and they can't handle money. Okay. But here they were collecting money. So then Elder Yasser, the term elder is used out of respect because he's been a fully ordained monk for such a long time, right? So Elder Yasser goes to this crowd and tells the layman and the monks that this is not correct, this is against the Vinaya rule. But the layman and the monks, they laugh, they scold him, they tell him to mind your own business. And of course, Elder Yasser was quite unhappy with that whole incident, and he came and spoke with Rahatan Wahanse, who is Revata. The Revata Rahatan Wahanse name. Kata kare. Yeah, he spoke with. He came. So he came to Kosambi city, and he assembled all the monks and he shared his concerns. So the senior and enlightened monks who were there were Avanti, Pava, and so on, and of course Venerable Revata. And he told that, look, the Vajjayans are doing this. They have established 10 new rules saying that it's okay to have salt, it's okay to collect money, it is okay to have your noon meal even after noon, and so on. So they're changing the rules. They're starting with 10 rules, changing with 10 rules, but soon the possibilities they'll change more things, right? So and when he discussed his concern, all the monks assembled there, they all said to Venerable Revata why don't you go and have a chat? One reason why they wanted Venerable Revat to go was he was also from the same location as the Vajjayans. And he knew the Dhamma and the Vinaya really well, so they felt rather than an outsider go and try to explain to the Vajji bhikkhus that this is incorrect, it's good to send Venerable Revata. So initially, Venerable Revata was not happy to do this because he felt those guys are not going to get convinced. But later he thought, okay, like let me give it a try, right? So Venerable Revata and a few others, they went and they discussed with the Vajjis, and they explained that these are the reasons why these 10 rules that you guys are now following, it is incorrect. It's against the Vinaya Pitaka. But of course, the Vajji bhikkhus didn't accept it. And they said that if that is the case, we will break away, right? And we will have our own order and understanding of what the Buddha said as Vinaya. So that was the outcome that happened finally, right? So anyway, given that it was now 100 years since the first council, they felt that it's time to hold another council, right? So Sabbakami Thero was the leader of it, the Second Buddhist Council, and King Kala Soka was the sponsor because it's not easy. The last council went for 7 months for 500 Rahatan Vahanses. This council had 700, it went on to 8 months. So in those 8 months, these 700 venerable enlightened monks will not be going Pindapati, which means somebody has to prepare the dana for them. And unless a king supports it, it's going to be a very hard thing for normal people to do. So that is why a king's support, patronage is so important, right? So during the council, they recited all the Dhamma and the Vinaya that the Buddha had preached. And based on those, they one by one compared the 10 unlawful rules of the Vajjian bhikkhus and whether there is any merit in it, whether there's anything right about what the Vajjian bhikkhus are saying. But each one, when they evaluated one by one against the Dhamma and the Vinaya that has been preached, they saw that it's wrong, right? It's wrong. As per the teaching of the Buddha, it was wrong. So one outcome of the Second Buddhist Council was they firmly established that the 10 rules that were followed by the Vajjiyas were unlawful as per the Vinaya Pitaka. The place it was held was the Valukarame in the city of Vesali. Sabbakami Thero was the lead, so 700 Rahatan Vahanses attended. King Kala Ashoka was the chief supporter. It went on up to 8 months. So the first result was the 10 points of the Vajjian bhikkhus were declared unlawful. The entire Dhamma and Vinaya was recited and purified. And Vaitulyavada came into existence. The Vajjian bhikkhus held a separate council, and they came to be known as the Mahasangha. And this was what was later known as the Mahayana Buddhism. Those who purified the Dhamma came to be known as the Theravada. The origin of Mahayana sect came into being. The order of bhikkhus eventually broke into 18 sects, right? 12 Theravadin and 6 Mahasanghikas. Okay, so it is sad in a way, but also it is normal and natural that as the number of years progress, there will be divisions because of differences of opinions, right? Now, the Mahayana Buddhism, there's technically nothing wrong with it, right? It's just that they have interpreted and understood some things a bit differently. But when you look at the core of Buddhism, what can you call the core of Buddhism? The core of Buddhism is the 4 noble truths, right? The 8 noble paths, the Paticca right? What else? the need for meditation to realize the path. Those things are common. There is no debate about those. The debate came about other things, right? So if you think of the core of Buddhism, everybody's clear, and there's one view about it. But the debate came about the rest of it. And now, if we look at it in an unbiased way, why do I say unbiased? So we are born into a country that has Theravada Buddhism, right? So then obviously you get biased. It's kind of a brainwashing because you know what is around you, and if you are biased, you will think that that is the only way. But from an unbiased point of view, I would say that the Mahayana Buddhism is a more flexible religion. Maybe it has changed with the times, and become more progressive, right? Whereas the Theravada Buddhism is sticking with the original teachings of the Buddha, the original practices with the Buddha. So one can argue with both ways. So one can say that no matter how long it is, 2000 years or 5000 years, what is the Dhamma is the Dhamma. There's nothing to change it. And I agree, right? I agree. Somebody else might argue and say, some things need to change. Everything can't be carved in stone. And they have a point too. But if you really want to choose a side, I will choose the original teachings. But then again, we don't have any meter that can measure biasness, right? So I think it's an unbiased evaluation of mine, but you never know. Things called unconscious biases can remain. So I might be unconsciously biased to what I have known all my life, right? Which was the Theravada and not the Mahayana. So that is in the whole self-awareness realm. Okay. So I would like to finish the council's lesson today. So let us go to the third Buddhist council. So 218 years after passing away the Buddha, the third Buddhist council took place, right? So the reason for it, now remember the first Buddhist council was because of something Subhadra said. And Venerable Mahakashyapa Thera was shocked. The Buddha just passed away and already people are trying to change things. Then the second Buddhist council happened 100 years after the first Buddhist council because things were already now starting to change, right? New laws were getting established. And even though the second Buddhist council said that those new rules that were established are wrong, part of the Sangha broke out and said, no, we believe it is right. And they went a separate way, right? And that's just 100 years after the Buddha passed away. Remember now it is 2,600 years. You can imagine how much things would have changed. Again, not the core, but all the other peripheral things. So what has happened is from then up to now, a lot of Buddha Puja have come into it, right? So Buddhism has become more about Buddha Puja, rites and rituals, and less about the Four Noble Truths. It's about understanding the real nature of us. And it has gone more into gathas and various things, right? So which is not exactly what the Buddha wanted. But it's natural that a religion will evolve like that. Okay, so in the third Buddhist council, there were more and more people who had joined the Sasana for the wrong reasons. And at the time, King Asoka was the patron, and he gave a lot of support. So King Asoka was not always a Buddhist, you know the story, but once he heard and understood the Dharma, he was captivated by the philosophy, and he was very, very interested, and he became a keen supporter of it. So one monk who inspired him a lot and worked closely with him and guided him was Moggaliputta Tissapero, again a Rahatan Vahanse, right? So King Asoka asked Moggaliputta Tissapero, what is it that I can do in service of Buddhism? And then the Thero, of course, said, now it is 200 plus years since the passing away of the Buddha, and so many new things are creeping in and taking away from what the Buddha told. So then King Asoka's like, so what do we do? How do we start to clean this? And then this Mahathera said, there are people who have joined for the wrong reasons. They may be having a robe, but they are not preaching the Dhamma. They're preaching their own things because a lot of heretics, the religious leaders and followers of other sects, they joined the Buddha Sasana simply to have a free ride, right? Because nobody was giving them dana, nobody was interested in their doctrines anymore. So obviously they came and became part of the Mahasangha, so they get the food, they get the lodging, they get the respect from the kings and the situs and various other people. And technically it's a good life. Now the problem with it was they were going and preaching their own religion, right? And that was causing confusion, that was causing a lot of trouble. So then King Asoka said, okay, so how do we clean this up? So Moggaliputta Tissapura said there's only one way, right? If somebody joined with a real intention of getting enlightened, with a real intention of joining the Sasana for the benefit of themselves and for the society, they will know what Paticcasamuppada is, right? And they will know that that is the core, that's the crux of what Buddhism is all about, right? Dependent origination. So what Moggaliputta Sisasero said was, King, if you can assemble all the monks, everybody, get them all into here, right? And send them in one by one, and we are going to ask them just one question. The question is, what is the core of Buddhism, right? Buddhism, Buddha Agame, Haraya Mukad. What is the core of Buddha's teaching? So anybody who answered saying Paticcasamuppada, they were sent to the right-hand side and they were allowed to stay in the Sasana and they were supported as real Buddha Putras. But those who answered anything else other than the right answer, they were told that, like, look, I don't think this is working, right? I don't think you should be in this Sasana. I think we can offer you an option. If you'd like to be a layman, we will help you. We'll find you a nice girl to marry. We'll give you land to harvest, and you can live a life of a farmer. Right? So most of these guys, they agreed because they were caught, right? They were fought because they didn't know. They didn't know because they were not interested. They were not interested because they joined the Sasana for other reasons, right? And there was a real cleansing of the monks at the time of the King Asoka. So then once that was done, and King Asoka, he was then a Buddhist. If he was at the time he was carrying out wars and all, he was quite an aggressive person. At that time, if this happened, he would have chopped off everybody's heads, people who had joined for the wrong reasons. But now he was a Buddhist and he had metta, karuna and all, and he was compassionate. So that is why he took that compassionate route of, and obviously Moggaliputta Tissapura would have advised him to do that. He took the compassionate route of, look guys, no, you really don't belong here. We will help you. Why don't you just go be good layman and enjoy life, right? Rather than mess up something over here. Yeah, and that was something they readily accepted because they probably thought their head will get chopped off or they'll be thrown in prison, but that is not what happened. Okay. So then King Asoka asked, okay, so now we have cleaned up the Sasana, now what? So then, of course, Moggaliputta Tissapura Rahatan Wangse would have said, now it is time to do another Buddhist council. So the third Buddhist council. Now this had 1,000 enlightened beings. Like, wow, right? Wouldn't I have liked to have met them? And maybe I have, and maybe it meant nothing, and I'm still here. So anyway, there were 1,000 enlightened beings, 1,000 Rahatan Wahanses. King Asoka was the main patron, and the what do you call it? The council, the Buddhist council, third Buddhist council went up for 9 months, right? It took place in the Ashokarama in the city of Pataliputta, okay? 218 years after the passing of the Buddha. And the main reason to hold the council is given as heretics had crept into Buddhist monasteries for livelihoods, honor and gain, They were disseminating their own doctrine while being in the robes of Buddhist monks. So that was the reason for it. And what was the outcome? So purifying the order and expelling around 60,000 heretics. Good heavens, right? 60,000 heretics. That's a huge number, who had become monks mainly for the wrong reasons, right? Compilation of the doctrine under the Tripitaka and the addition of Katavattu, Pakarna for the Abhidhamma Pitaka. It was the third Buddhist council that the three clear separation of Dhamma, Vinaya, and Abhidhamma took place. Until then, Abhidhamma existed, but as a section of the Dhamma. It was clearly separated as a third bucket. So there were three buckets, Dhamma, Vinaya, and Abhidhamma. That happened after the third Buddhist councils. Sending of missionaries for different regions and countries to propagate the religion, and that was very, very useful, right? Otherwise, you and I will not have Buddhism the way we know it, because that was the reason Buddhism came to Sri Lanka with Mihindu Maharajah Wahanse, right? So that was really great of King Ashoka to do that. So they sent missionaries to Sri Lanka, Kashmir, Greece, Mysore, Western India, Himalayas, and Burma, and yeah, and thanks to that, here we are. Here we are studying Buddhism, all right, at 9:30 in the night. So maybe it's not a good thing, right? Maybe I should be compassionate now about you all and let you go to have dinner and have a good night. Huh? What do you think? What do you think, Janadi, Inura, and Manasi? Since you guys are the ones with the videos on. Buddhism is all about compassion, right? Should I let you guys off now? All right, so those are the three Buddhist councils, okay? Janadi, I can't hear you, you're on mute. You were saying something. I will share this, let me just show you what the note I have. Let me just share the screen for a minute and show this note. I post it here. So this note, can everyone see the note? Yep. Can you nod your head if you can see? Okay, I can see Janadi nodding the head. Okay, cool. So this note is given like this. You can see this table. I have put a table saying first Buddhist Council, second Buddhist Council, and third Buddhist Council. And then I have put the time. So first one is 3 months after passing of the Buddha. Second one is 100 years after the first council. Third one is 218 years. So that is easy for you to study, right? So kids understanding this is one thing. It's important to understand from a historical point of view, and also to feel grateful that, 2,600 years later, you and I have all these amazing things to learn from, because so many venerable pharaohs took so much of effort, and so many kings have supported, and Upasuk, Upasika, Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, they all helped to sustain this, to protect this, and to propagate it. Okay, so we should be grateful for that as well. So these are the reasons for the holding of the council, right? So Subhadra, the monk Subhadra, was what he said was one reason. The 10 unlawful points of the Vajjibhikkhus was for the second Buddhist council, and for the third one, it was the heretics that had come for the wrong reasons, right? The places, Sattapanike, king of Rajagaha for the first, Valukarame in the city of Vesali for the second, Ashokarame, city of Pataliputra for the third, Venerable Mahakashyapa, Sabbakami Thero, Moggaliputta Tisatero were the lead monks for the first, second, and third council. Then if you look at number of arahants, 500, 700, and 1,000, like, wow, right? If you look at the kings who supported King Ajasattha, King Kalashoka, and King Ashoka. And the duration was 7 months for the first, 8 months for the second, and 9 months for the third. And if you look at the results, so of course, the first one, there was the 45 years of teaching. Nowhere has it all come together and systematically put together like a syllabus, right? So that happened for the first time, and that was really cool. In the second one, the biggest thing was the 10 points that the Vajjan Bhikkhus brought was declared as unlawful, and the Dhamma and Vinaya were recited again and purified. So it was purified once in the first Sanghayana, it was purified again in the second, right? But the thing is, the Vajjan monks didn't agree to this, and the Sasana is split into two, and later on it broke in even more. And when we take the third Buddhist council, something really significant. So a lot of significant things happen in every council. In the third one, what happened was the heretics, 60,000 heretics were expelled. Then the doctrine was compiled under 3 buckets, that is Dhamma, Vinaya, and Abhidhamma. And of course, the sending of missionaries to Sri Lanka, Kashmir, Greece, Himalayas, Burma, and so on. That was a very, very significant thing. All right. Okay, so let me stop there. And there's one more lesson that I have to do, the 4 Noble Truths. When shall we do that? Shall we do that next week? It's now back to back. We have had lessons, and I think, it might be a little bit too much, isn't it? So when we do papers and all, we can revise again. But the 4 Noble Truths, let me do it next week like this as a virtual thing on a Tuesday. Is that okay with everyone? All right. So okay, cool. So on Sunday I did the 10 perfections, the paramita. Yesterday we didn't have a session. Then today we did the Buddhist councils. Okay. And I would like you to read through this, and while it is fresh in your mind, study it, especially the summary that I gave you. That will help you to remember it. And let's do the 4 Noble Truths next week. Okay. I will see you on Saturday at Dhamma School. All right, children, take care. Good night and Theravada Sannai.
Thank you, Miss. Good night, Miss.
Thank you, teacher.
Everyone,
Everyone, Miss.
Theravada Sannai.